Greetings, everyone. My name is Thomas, and today I'm going to share with you a presentation which explores what is Ayyám-i-Há, which are the intercalary days in the Badí calendar of the Bahá'í Faith. The goal of our presentation today will be to give some basic information about Ayyám-i-Há and to share some reflections, which I hope would be the start of maybe some personal reflections and meditations on your part, and mine, of course, too. So we're going to look at a brief overview of the Badí calendar itself. We'll examine some excerpts from the Kitab-i-Aqdas, where Baha'u'lláh gives us a definition of these important things. We're going to explore the meaning of the days of Ha. Are they more than just days to fill out a calendar? And we'll reflect on these ideas as well and bring in some other quotations to help give us some inspiration. And then for reference at the end, we'll look at Badí dates on the Gregorian calendar that were provided to us by the Universal House of Justice. So let's go ahead and do some exploring. So first of all, looking at the Badí calendar, the current calendar of the Baha'i worldwide community has progressively come into being, starting with the Bab in the late 1840s, and now most recently revised by the Universal House of Justice and put into effect in the year 2015. You can see details on how it was constructed and some reflections on the calendar itself at this link I've got on the page, which is from my YouTube channel. This is a little bit more than a 1-hour presentation, and so it definitely goes through it quite thoroughly. So Badí is a word which means wonderful or wondrous or means unique, and it also means beginning. So this Badí calendar is wonderful and unique indeed. So it annually synchronizes at the vernal equinox to the movement of the Earth in its solar orbit. It meaningfully names the months and the days of the month, and indeed the days of the week. And it's independent of any calendars of the past, yet it's mindful of both our lunar and solar heritage that humanity is accustomed to. And when we think about it, meaningfully naming the months, we can think about the calendar currently in use in the West, which we call the Gregorian calendar. Well, that is a derivation from a Roman calendar. The Roman calendar only had 10 named months. Some of them were named literally month 6, month 7, month 8, month 9, month 10. Very creative. And now some of those actually got renamed in order to honor some of the great Roman emperors. So July is named after Julius Caesar. August is named after Augustus Caesar. Some of the other rulers afterwards tried to get a month named after them, but they didn't have any success. It didn't stick. Some of the other months are named after Roman gods and goddesses. And so maybe we're really into mythology, some of us, but other than ancient Roman mythology, these names really don't have any meaning for us. So it's wonderful that the Badí calendar gives us some real meaning that we can meditate upon with each passing month. So the calendar itself is comprising 19 months of 19 days. And if you do that math, that leads you to 361. And so then we have to add some extra days. Usually it's 4, but sometimes there are 5 intercalary days, which are the days used to complete the calendar to synchronize to the Earth's orbit. And you probably are already familiar with the idea of intercalary because February 29 is actually an intercalary day used to create the leap year in the Gregorian calendar. Each year begins at the adjusted day of vernal equinox, and that adjustment is based on when the equinox occurs relative to sunset in Tehran, the birthplace of Baha'u'lláh. Each day locally begins at sunset. The Baha'i era itself actually began, if we apply the current calendar rules retroactively to that older date, would have begun on the 20th of March, 1844. And each day and month is named after certain attributes of God, which you can see attested to in note 147 of the Kitab-i Aqdas. And this is truly not just a calendar. I love this excerpt from a paragraph of a message from the Universal House of Justice, in which they actually gave us the revision of this Badí calendar. They wrote, "The adoption of a new calendar in each dispensation is a symbol of the power of divine revelation to reshape human perception of material, social, and spiritual reality. Through it, sacred moments are distinguished, humanity's place in time and space reimagined, and the rhythm of life recast." I've spent some time meditating on the meaning of this excerpt and encourage you to do the same if you haven't already. It really makes us appreciate the value and the power of this calendar so much more. But the point today isn't to dwell on all the details and ideas of the calendar itself. We're focusing in on those 4 or 5 days within it. So we can begin exploring those days by looking at paragraph 16 of the Kitab-i Aqdas. And this is an excerpt, although it's the majority of the paragraph. Baha'u'lláh wrote, "O people of the world, we have enjoined upon you fasting during a brief period, and at its close have designated for you Nowruz as a feast. Let the days in excess of the months be placed before the month of fasting. We have ordained that these, amid all nights and days, shall be the manifestations of the letter Ha, and thus they have not been bounded by the limits of the year and its months. It behooveth the people of Baha throughout these days to provide good cheer for themselves, their kindred, and beyond them the poor and needy, and with joy and exultation to hail and glorify their Lord, to sing his praise and magnify his name. And when they end these days of giving that precede the season of restraint, let them enter upon the fast." And if you don't happen to have a copy of the Kitab-i Aqdas, you can follow this link at the bottom of the page, and that will lead you right to this excerpt. Well, further, there are more notes pertaining to the letter Ha. And you can see right beside my title here, I'll use my pointer and help lead you there. That's actually the Arabic letter Ha. Looks like a rosebud, or as in another tablet of Baha'u'lláh, he reflects on the letter that it looks like there's 2 eyes within that letter. And he writes about that idea. It's a very interesting tablet as well. But I digress. In note 28 of the Kitab-i Aqdas, regarding this phrase, we have ordained that these, and concludes with, shall be the manifestations of the letter Ha. So we read in that note, "Known as the Ayyám-i-Há, the days of Ha, the intercalary days have the distinction of being associated with the letter Ha, The abjad numerical value of this Arabic letter is 5, which corresponds to the potential number of intercalary days. The letter Ha has been given several spiritual meanings in the holy writings, among which is as a symbol of the essence of God. And then further, if we look at the summons of the Lord of Hosts, Bahá'u'lláh describes a particular word there, and in a note it clarifies. So we read that Ha is taken to symbolize the word Huviyah, which is essence of divinity in English. Oh, and so for those unfamiliar, what is abjad? So abjad is a system in which the letters in Arabic are each assigned a numerical value. And so everything has a value, and it's quite fascinating that, or how our manifestations of God, both the Bab and Baha'u'lláh, have created additional meaning and additional insights that we can grasp by choosing words which have a particular additive numerical value, and there's meaning in that value as well as in the word, as well as in the concepts they're conveying. It's just extraordinary. And a final note, just for the curious, the first day of Ha occurs 342 days after Nowruz, always, always. And the last day of Ha is always 19 days before the next Nowruz. And over long periods of time, it averages 4.24 days of Ha per year. So mostly 4, sometimes 5. So let's look more closely at sentence number 6 from that particular paragraph 16, where it says, "We have ordained that these, amid all nights and days, shall be the manifestations of the letter Ha, and thus they have not been bounded by the limits of the year and its months." So these days of Ha are the manifestations of the essence of God, the essence of divinity, which we learn in the tablet of all food is the realm of Hahut, which is the highest of the 5 realms mentioned in that tablet, where we have the essence of God unmanifested. We have the hidden mystery, the hidden treasure, the absolute unknown, the primal oneness, right? All these concepts which are so far above us. So how is it that these days can be the manifestations of the unknowable essence? What is it that we humans should do to translate this statement into action? Recalling this wonderful writing of Baha'u'lláh, it is incumbent upon every man of insight and understanding to strive to translate that which hath been written into reality and action. You can see that in tablets of Baha'u'lláh. So the essence of God is unknowable to us, indescribable by us, and incomprehensible to us, beyond the description of any names or attributes. So how are these days of Ha symbolically not bounded? They're certainly bounded within the calendar of necessity, right? We have to have rules to make the calendar. But we appreciate that the essence of God is not bounded by any limitation. And so in that realm, of course, these days of Ha, being symbolic of the essence of God, are of course unbounded. But what does that mean for us? Well, there's a prayer for the fast that we can call to mind. You can find that in the compilation, The Importance of Obligatory Prayer and Fasting. It's selection number 6. And I'm quoting here the first paragraph of that prayer. And by the way, there's a link right at the bottom of the page where you can go straight to this as well if you would like. "Exalted art thou, O Lord my God, I beseech thee, by those whom thou hast bidden to observe the fast for the sake of thy love and good pleasure, who have demonstrated their allegiance to thy law and followed thy verses and precepts, and who have broken their fast while enjoying near access to thee and beholding thy countenance, by thy glory, since they are turning to the court of thy good pleasure, all their days are days of fasting. Were the mouth of thy will to address them, saying, observe for my beauty's sake the fast, O people, and set no limit to its duration, I swear by the majesty of thy glory that every one of them will faithfully observe it, will abstain from whatsoever will violate thy law, and will continue to do so until they yield up their souls unto thee, for they have tasted the sweetness of thy call and become inebriated with thy remembrance and praise, and with the words proceeding from the lips of thy command. And it should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that there's nothing highlighted in the sacred writings. This one sentence highlighted is my doing, of course. So let's consider a few of these ideas here. Since they are turning to the court of thy good pleasure, all their days are days of fasting. And Baha'u'lláh gives a what if, right? That if he were to say, set no limit to its duration, he expresses confidence that every one of them will faithfully observe it and will abstain from whatsoever will violate thy law. So does this not convey the attitude of our devotion? And is this not actually the aspect in which the days of Ha are not bounded by us also? And in thinking of this, we can consider the community cycles of activity, right? We have these 3-month cycles, which includes, among others, an expansion phase and a consolidation phase. And this expansion phase is more intense. However, the activity in both expansion and consolidation are really the same activities, right? The expansion phase is really just one in which the activity is more intense. And so is therefore Ayyám-i-Há perhaps a more intensive period of all these things Baha'u'lláh said, right? In a more intensive period of joy, of giving, of service, of charity, though we practice all these things throughout the year. And looking at that next sentence, sentence number 7, it says, it behooveth the people of Baha throughout these days to provide good cheer for themselves, their kindred, and beyond them the poor and needy, and with joy and exultation to hail and glorify their Lord, to sing his praise and magnify his name. And when they end, these days of giving that precede the season of restraint, let them enter upon the fast. So let's really think about this. How can we provide good cheer for ourselves? Let's not forget ourselves, right? For our kindred, for the poor, and for the needy. Well, we see our fellow Baha'is during these days having parties, especially for the children, giving gifts, engaging in service projects, acts of charity such as giving generously to those in need, showing wonderful hospitality and visiting people. These are, at their core, mostly material, really, although obviously there's a great spiritual component to them. And these are very uplifting and they're very important. And in addition to these, perhaps we can think about what sorts of spiritual gifts and spiritual service that we can offer to others. And how we can be generous with our time and with our insights. And by the way, did we mention it's not just for others, it's also for ourselves too. So how can we translate all these ideas into our actions? This phrase in particular, with joy and exultation, to hail and glorify their Lord, to sing his praise and magnify his name. That's something really good to think about. How do we translate that into our actions? How am I going to translate that into my actions? Something else to consider too, of Ayyám-i-Há as a prelude to the fast. Something that only recently occurred to me is to consider how many people, not only Baha'is, observe the fast. So perhaps we can consider how we can give to the needy or those needing other assistance to make it easier for those who observe to get through the fast. And of course, for those who don't observe, just helping them get through life more easily. So this spirit of making it easier for others to get through the fast is conveyed in an untranslated letter of Shoghi Effendi, so I'm told by my Arabic-speaking friends. Perhaps we can share gifts of understanding and insight to help others. We can give generous gifts of our time. Particularly if we have very little means, we can always still give generous gifts of time. So we are encouraged to celebrate the essence of God and his oneness by doing all these things we talked about, by showing love and fellowship and unity and so forth. So are there any analogs for Ayyám-i-Há anywhere else? Is Ayyám-i-Há merely a Baha'i replacement for Christmas? Is it like Mardi Gras, perhaps, a time of really living it up before we enter the fast? Or such as Mardi Gras is living it up before the time of Lent, the time of restraint in the Christian religion. So is it more than this? Well, I think we've probably already concluded it most certainly is, right? It is a time for charity, of goodwill, of good cheer to self and others, of service, executing projects of a humanitarian nature, charity, giving our time, showing hospitality, connecting with others, helping others prepare for the fast through both material and spiritual preparation, right? Having access to the right kind of nutrition, having keener insight and understanding of the purpose of the fast for it's not just physical restraint, it's spiritual rejuvenation, and for improving any defects in our character and our behaviors and so on. And so it's great preparation for the fast. So we can ponder, how do our days of Ha prepare us to enter upon the fast? And what are we going to do about that? How are we going to prepare? So just a couple more things to share in conclusion. So the Universal House of Justice provided us dates for the first 50 years of the implementation of the newly revised Badí calendar. And so the next couple of slides I'm going to share literally a copied and pasted image of what they shared to absolutely prevent any possible typographical error on my part. So you can trust these and rely on them. I'm sure you have these elsewhere, though, in your own collection of information. And but I'm only showing it starting from Nowruz of 2022. But here we see the Baha'i dates in this first column and the Gregorian equivalent. Those are the dates of Nowruz, and then continued here on our supplemental little paste. And then we see the Baha'i dates and equivalents of the birth of the Bab and the birth of Baha'u'lláh. And most pertinently for our presentation today are the days of Ayyám-i-Há. So it says here I-4, which means there are 4 days for that particular year. And here are the Gregorian dates for those 4 days of Ayyám-i-Há. So you can see these for all the years going up to the year actually 2065 for the dates of Ayyám-i-Há. And then the next slide shows us the remainder of the calendar, which all is triggered off of which is the date of Nowruz. Interestingly, for these first 50 years of the calendar, there are only 2 possible dates of Nowruz. It's either March 20 or March 21. However, if we look way ahead in time, we see that Nowruz can actually occur on March 19, and it can also occur on March 22. For example, by my own personal calculation, don't take this as an authority, right? It's just me talking here. In 2092, we have an earlier Nowruz, and in the year 2303, we'll have Nowruz occur on March 22 for the first time since this revised Badí calendar was given to us. However, no matter what the date is of Nowruz, there's still only 4 or 5 days of Ha, and there's never anything other than 4 or 5. So, dear friends, thank you for watching the presentation. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at this link below, or view any of the other public presentations that I have posted there. I do keep adding one every now and then, and so it's building up to a larger amount every passing year. So thanks once again, and happy Ayyám-i-Há to you.